a special librarian at the Belfast Free Library before taking a job at the Maine State Library in Augusta, which is currently part of a massive redo, which is what we've been talking about. But BJ was signed up today to speak with us about FamilySearch, so we'll let you get started.
Okay.
I'll ask people to stay muted, and I don't know, how do you want to handle questions, BJ?
Feel free to just interrupt. I'm keeping this one real casual.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to be just working through the website rather than a PowerPoint because it was easy. It's easier. And so
okay, and we'll try to wrap up somewhere around 3 o'clock, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, although as you guys know, no one has ever accused me of being short-winded. So
take it away.
Okay. Yeah, well, thanks for having me back. I will say that leaving Belfast was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. I did not want to leave. And it's only the fact that I can now go around the state preaching about the joys of genealogy that got me out of Belfast. But what I'm going to talk about today is the stuff at FamilySearch that is not indexed. Now, I know most of you have probably used FamilySearch the way you use Ancestry, where you go in and you put names in those little magic boxes and results pop up. Well, here's the problem. It's much faster to digitize microfilm than it is to index the records that are on that microfilm. Does that make sense to everybody? Because there are machines that they can practically run the microfilm through to digitize it, but people need to go in and index. So what's happened is that there's a whole lot of stuff at FamilySearch that's not indexed. I've seen estimates everywhere from half to 3/4 of their material is digitized but not indexed. So if you're relying on the little magic boxes, you're going to miss a lot. Some of you may remember, you used to be able to go to a family history center or affiliate library, order a microfilm from Salt Lake City. It came, you used it, you renewed it if you had to, and then it went back to Salt Lake City. 3 years or so ago, they stopped sending out microfilm because the cost to duplicate a microfilm to send it out that way was horrendous. And again, I've heard different numbers, but it sort of falls in it was like $60 or $70 per roll, and they were only getting $8 per rental. So they decided that they would stop loaning out the microfilms and put all that money into the digitizing. That makes sense to everybody? It certainly makes sense to me. Because it means that you don't have to go into the Family History Center anymore. You can sit at home in most cases. I am going to show you how to tell the ones where you need to be in the Family History Center or an affiliate library, which the state library is. I don't think Belfast is, but I'm in the middle of changing it for here to our new location. When I find the right person, it's free. So I'll send the information to Sharon so that she can, I think it's probably worth, there are a couple computer requirements, but I think it's probably worth Belfast doing that because a lot of the records for Massachusetts you have to be in an affiliate library. What happened was FamilySearch signed contracts with many of these organizations, institutions that own the records long before anyone thought about the existence of the internet. And so they're working on renegotiating some of these contracts, but that takes time. And it doesn't always go the way they want it to. So there are some things where you have to be in, as I said, the Family History Center or the affiliate library to see them. So everyone with me so far? Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is share my screen. So this is the homepage for the Family History Library's FamilySearch. I'm signed in. You do need to have a free account. I can tell you from experience that they do not use that to spam you on anything other than sending you lots of genealogy information and lots of, this is the anniversary of your ancestor's death or birth or whatever. So if you look here, and I'm not going to talk about it today, but unlike Ancestry where you have your own tree, they're working at a one world family tree with everyone tied together. And I could talk at length about the pros and cons of that versus the Ancestry model of a private tree, but that's not today. If you're so inspired, you can help with indexing. That's a separate thing as well. Today I'm going to deal with the search. And so search records is the little magic boxes like Ancestry. The things I'm going to be concerned about today are down here at the bottom. And I'm going to start with the research wiki because it's a really handy guide to what's out there. And this is essentially a genealogy version of Wikipedia. And so if I go to North America and scroll down to the United States and then to Maine, whoops, didn't want to do that. Let's keep going. Let's go back to where I should be. This is the page for dealing with records in Maine. You can see here they have the record types, and you could click on one of these for the whole state, or you can click on a county. So here I'm going to click on Waldo County. And it's got the nice little history of when it was created, boundary changes, when the major county records start, list of all the towns. And so if we go into Belfast, a lot of the smaller places aren't that filled out. You can, once you have an account, if you wanted to go in and beef this up, you could. But for example, here we have a case of early Belfast records, and it says images. So if we click here, this takes us to the catalog entry. And as you can see, here's the location. Here are each film these days, if it's been digitized, has two numbers. Either one works when we get further on. And if you can see, there's a little camera with a key over it. Everybody see that? That means this is one you need to be at a family history center or affiliate library to view. That's, if it didn't have the key, we could see it online. Does that make sense to everybody that it's locked? So that's why there's a key. It tells you.
Quick question.
Yeah.
You're looking at the catalog there and the film number, and then DG. If it has a DGS number, does that mean it's been digitized?
Generally, yes. It's digital something.
Okay. If it doesn't, then it hasn't been probably.
Often, yeah. I don't want to say always because, that's, but one of the things this is one way you can get at these records that haven't been indexed is by going through the wiki and clicking on the record. But that's, and one of the nice things is they're not only showing you their own stuff. So for example, Here's one for something that's at Ancestry. I will tell you that these click through to the regular version of Ancestry, not the library version. But it gives you the name of the database, so you could go to Ancestry and find it that way. And then it gives you some of the big towns near Belfast, and you'll notice it says the Atlantic Ocean as one of them. So that's one way, and this is basically, anytime I'm looking for something new or a new location, I go in and I search the wiki to see what's available, and I start at the state or province level, work down to county and then to town. But it's a good way to see things like, you know, when do marriage records start? When do, you know, did the county courthouse burn? Things like that. Does that make sense to everybody? How that can be a very helpful tool. So that's one way to get at things. So the other way is to go into the catalog. And this is essentially a catalog of everything the Family History Library owns. And so we're going to run into things that aren't digitized, and I'll show you some of the ways you can maybe find something else. So let's start with Belfast. And as you can see, you have multiple choices, but we'll go for the one in Waldo County and hit search. And here's everything they've got where the subject includes Belfast. And so if we click here, here are the church records. I have no idea why this Bradford, Vermont is in Belfast. If somebody knows, let me know, please. And as you can see, there are these others. Here's the records of Edward Cutter. And so I'm going to show you a few things here. Again, it tells you who the authors are. And so if you want to see everything that Elizabeth Mosier did, you can click on that and it'll come up with everything she touched, at least based on what they have. This is the only subject heading they're under. This is a book, so it doesn't have a film number because it's a physical book in Salt Lake City. Now, there are a couple ways to get around having to fly to Salt Lake City to look at this. So one of the things is here where it says Family History Library, if you click, and I've clicked on these and had 15, 20, 30 family history centers. Well, Monterey, California doesn't help any more than Salt Lake City does. But for some of these, what happened was when either the Family History Center has bought the book or someone donated it, or if it's a microfilm, when they stopped loaning out the films, family history centers around the world were given the option of keeping the films. And so in some cases, if this were a film, it might say that it's at the Bangor Family History Center, or it may say it's at the one in South Portland, Cape Elizabeth, wherever. It's right there on the border between the two towns. And so you'd be able to go there and take a look at it. The other thing is, because it's a book, they have linked here to what's called WorldCat. And I'm going to take a slight detour through this tour at this point and explain to you what WorldCat is, because it's one of the other very underused resources for genealogists, because it's not aimed at genealogists, but it's aimed at librarians, but that no reason you can't use it. So I'm going to click this open in a new tab. And WorldCat is essentially an attempt to have a catalog so interlibrary loan librarians can find where books are to ask for them on interlibrary loan. So here we have the records. This is the book, gives you the publishing information just the way any catalog would. And what it does then, it shows you where this book is. Now for Maine, it's pulling Ursus but not Minerva libraries, which is why I'm sure this book isn't on the shelf in Belfast, but that's why it's not showing here. But it is showing the places in the state that are on the Ursus system, which is mostly the universities and colleges, and as you can see, Bangor and Portland. But this at least gives you a starting point of saying, hey, you know, I can't get to Salt Lake City. Where's the closest copy of this book? Does that make sense to everybody? So this is worldcat.org. And the other thing that's really nice, let's go to their homepage. If you create a free account, which anybody can do, I'm going to sign in. And now let me go back to that. So let me make sure I'm really signed in here. So I'm signed in. And let's say I'm starting a project of Belfast genealogy. I can click here, add to list. Come on, computer. And I don't happen to have a list for this, but I'm going to make one. And I'm going to hit Belfast, Maine. Because I could just as easily have a Belfast, Northern Ireland. So I want to be clear on that. I'm making it private. I'm going to hit create list. And now if I go to my lists, so let's pull up my paleography list, which is reading old handwriting. And the reason this is nice is that you can export this for citations. And you can do it in multiple ways. And it lets you choose which of several styles you want. So again, it's free and it's not perfect. You would have to go in and do, you know, this early modern marginalia. Taylor and Francis is a book buying consortium. And so you would want to change that, but at least, you know, it gives you the beginnings of a bibliography. And you could, like, I have one of my lists is, you know, things I want to get from the library when our interlibrary loan department reopens. So does everyone see why I wanted to do this detour through this? It's a really handy feature. I love the lists because I can go through and change them as I'm working on different projects. So WorldCat also owns Archive Grid, which is a similar system for archives. WorldCat is for, you know, mostly for books. And I could do a whole separate program on Archive Grid and WorldCat and all the details, but I just wanted to show you it was available. So let's go back here. And we'll go back to the search results. And one of the things you can do, if you've gone in and looked at a town, it will tell you that it's the next highest level of government is Waldo County in this case. So I can click on Waldo County, and this is where, for example, you would find what probate they have and what land and property records they've digitized. And so if we go in here, here's the Register of Deeds for the Waldo lands. Let's just go to the regular deed books. And my computer's being slow today, my apologies. And again, you need to be in an affiliate library. But that's at least easier, so for example, once Sharon gets this set up for at Belfast, you'd be able to go in the evening if you're working. So that's a handy, if you're working 9 to 5, you can't necessarily get into the deed office to check, but you'd be able to do it at the library. So let's go back to the search results again. And the other neat thing about this is when I'm at the next one up, if you click on places within the county, it then shows you all of the places in the county that they have records from. See how that could be handy? Now, all of you pretty much know Waldo County well enough that this may not be great, but let's say you've started researching in Wisconsin and you don't know the area that well, this could be helpful.
BJ, I have another, actually it's a comment.
Sure.
Over on the left side of the screen under search for and then down to availability, I use that a lot to specify, I just want to look at records from the catalog that are online.
Yes, I was getting to that.
Through all those other ones that you can't see. And so you get just the ones you can actually look at.
Right. I was getting there, Rick, but thank you. That's a good thing. So, you can click online here and update, and you'll see the numbers of these go down. So, I'm often trying to figure out just what exists overall. And so often I'm less concerned about what I can get my hands on instantly than what a patron can get their hands on ever. But let me show you some other things you can do. Let's hit reset and just go back to the catalog search page. Let's say we put in a surname. And this is one of the names in my mother's family. Oh, and you'll see here, you do have the links both to WorldCat and Archive Grid on this search page. And there's one record. And if we go in, it's only a film still. And here's a case where they've given it a digital number, but it isn't online yet. I'm guessing this has been scanned but not processed at some level. But again, it says it's a microfilm of the typescript at the New Hampshire Historical Society in Concord, New Hampshire, which to me says if I can't get to Salt Lake City, maybe I can get to Concord. It's a lot closer. At one point, they had a thing here where you could see what family history centers had it. It's not here anymore. And this is one that the Bangor, I used to use this one as an example because it was at the Bangor family. The copy of the microfilm was at Bangor. And if I wanted to see this, that would be the closest way for me to see it. But such is life. Now let me show you, here's a film number, and I'm going to copy it. My computer lets me. And we're going to go back to searching the catalog. And I don't know about you guys, but I often end up with film numbers. Either I've scribbled them to myself 15 years ago, or it's a reference somewhere else, you know, in an article or on, you know, an internet family tree. So if you click film and fiche number and put the number here and hit search, it tells me that there are 23 items on this film. And I'm guessing what it is and why this was at the Bangor Family History Center isn't because of the stuff from my family, but I'm guessing one of these other families has descendants. See, here's the Ross family of Brunswick, Maine, and so on. And so it shows you everything that's on that film number, which is less of an issue now that you can, you know, go in, but it's nice to see on this that, well, this is, on this one, items 2 and 3 are probably going to be near the beginning of the film. So anyway, let's go back to the catalog. And I'm going to try a place. And go for Middleton, Massachusetts. I'm going to click on taxation records. And what's interesting here is it looks like you've got a couple sets of, you've got the valuations and the taxes. And if we click on the taxes, we get that nice little locked thing. Or not so nice. But if we click on the valuations, we can actually get in here. And what's interesting is that did not have a key earlier today. I don't know what's going on here. If we click here, and these are somewhat, this is for everything, but we can browse. Oh, I know what happened. For some reason, I'm not signed in anymore. Let me reset this. And sometimes you have to be signed in. That may be what happened. Am I signed? No, I'm not signed in here. There we go. So notice I was signed in. When I wasn't signed in, it had the key. When I am signed in, it didn't. That was that's one reason you want to create a free account, is that happens. But we can also, you know, go in and go into Essex County and then Middleton and see what's here. And then click on the tax records. And as you saw here, see it says it's 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th item. I checked this out earlier today. And right now it's showing 1. If I need to scroll through, see this thing that looks like a whole bunch of almost a tic-tac-toe board? That is saying you're going to see multiple things here. And this is item 1, and you can sit here and you have to scroll till you find item 2. And they're easy to pick out. Here's the switch from item 1 to item 2. Everyone see that? They will have, and this had a lot of them, which is one reason I picked it as, so to get to what I wanted, it was image 455. And this is nice because also, you know, if you're interrupted, you can keep track of what image you got into. And then the next time you go in, you can skip to that image. And
How do you do that, BJ?
it's this thing
just have to
here.
write the image down?
Yeah, like if, you know, you would write down the film number in the image, just the way if you were going through a book of records, you'd put in a bookmark. Same thing here. You would write this down and then put it in. And you'll notice here, they will sometimes have comments on that the issues weren't with the microfilming, they were with the record. Just so you know that they do that.
You can see individual names on those papers.
Yeah, so let me go into one of these. And if I double clicked, so here's, this is the tax to support the minister of the town's church. Because at this point in the late 1700s, Massachusetts still had an established church. And you can see here are all, and they're in what I call, you know, and they're not necessarily in alphabetical order, as you can see. And you get, so, you know, this is the number of adult males, and then the taxes they paid per person for their real estate, and so on. And I've become a big fan of tax records from Massachusetts from the late 1700s, because it's before the 1790 census. And even though, and it has almost as much information as the 1790 census had, but it can help you place somebody in a particular town at a particular time. So that's one of the things you, and basically what you're doing at this point is you are just sitting here going through this the way you would have gone through an old reel of microfilm. And so, yeah, good old New England last names, Hadlock, Wilkins, Filene, lots of Wilkinses. One reason I've been looking at this is I have a Wilkins mystery at this time and place. And then at the end, you get the selectman for the town signing the tax. And so these are often the actual signatures of the selectmen. And you can see that, I'm guessing they all, you know, they look enough alike that I'm guessing they all went to the same school with the same teacher to learn to write. You know, if you look at the P's in Perkins, Putnam, and Peabody, but the writing's different enough, I'm pretty sure that these were actually their signatures. So that's how you get at those. There are other ways. If we go back to the catalog and we put in author, let's put in Maine State Archives and hit search. And we get 182 items of things that where one of the creators, owners, responsible parties for the records is the Maine State Archives. And you can go through and see what they've got. So, you know, here's some Kennebec County records, Penobscot County records, Revolutionary War bounty land applications from the 1830s, early passports for Maine residents, lots of county court records. That's a lot of what got digitized from the state archives. So that's another way to go in, is to see, to put in it, the name of a person or an organization, to see what they've been part of putting into the system. Does that make sense to everyone? And as I said, you can search by a title or a keyword as well. I'm going to take out the Maine State Archives. Let's put in Mariner and see what we come up with. Come on, computer. Yeah. State Library is supposed to have one of the fastest internet connections in the state, but it's not working well today. So let's try just going back to the catalog. And we'll put keyword in and put in Mariner. And so you, in this case, you get people where it results where it's the last name, it's an occupation that's part of a title. You get, here it's part of a church's name. Here it's part of the town name. And so this gets you all sorts of records that way. And you can narrow it down by only what's available, by time frame, by language, and sort of by type of record. So you're getting things like that when you do this, which can be helpful. Because 236 results is not bad, but if you get something that's 737, narrowing it down may be helpful. So let's do a new search. And let's do Danvers, Massachusetts. And we're going to go under church records and baptisms at the church in Salem Village, now North Parish, Danvers. And this is one that, to get the microfilm, you have to be, I am signed in this time. So this is one you have to be at a family history center or affiliate library. But notice that this is actually originally a book, and it says to view a digital version of this item, click here. And so if we click here, we get taken to the books section of what they've got. And notice here that this was printed, it was printed in 1880, so it's out of copyright. And we can actually click here and scroll through the book because the book's been digitized. And it tells you which institution's collection it came from. It gives you the information. And if you know something you're looking for is a book, you can go straight to the books tab here instead of the catalog and search just the books they've digitized. And as you can see, they also show you which libraries they've partnered with to get a lot of their books digitized. So Allen County Public Library, Fort Wayne, Houston has a huge genealogy collection, as does the Midwest Genealogy Center. Historical Society of Pennsylvania, again, huge collection, and so on. So you could search just one of these if you wanted to. For example, if you're looking for things with Deep South roots, you may want to just look at what Birmingham has. Or you can put in for everybody and hit search. And again, we get way too many results. So I'm going to put in, I think it's doing Sears and family. So let's put in just, no, that didn't help any at all. But we can click here. And so, for example, you know, Polk accompanies the directories, but we can look here. So let's say I was looking for Sears in Massachusetts. There's one I'd probably want to look at. It's only got 146 entries. And let's see what else we've got here.
BJ, quick question for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can go back to when you were actually looking at that physical copy of that book. Is there a way to search? You know how on the computer, if you're trying to find something, you can press Control F for find. Is there a way that you can search I think it was the Salem book, the back before.
Yeah.
That you can find specifically, do a search within that book so you don't have to scroll over every single page. There, yeah.
Let's see, where is it?
Is there a search option within that function, I guess?
See, here's the search, and let's do this. Yeah, so it's the little magnifying glass.
Okay.
You can choose to have 2 pages at a time, which, you know, the cover, they don't do that, but once you get into the book, you can switch from 2 to 1. You can download the image, or you can download the entire thing.
I'm excellent at downloading and printing, so I get in trouble for that. I'm trying to save some time and some of my mother's ink.
You can reverse the text color. You can adjust the contrast. So there are a bunch of controls here. But yeah, there is a search function, which is very handy. So that's what you get in the books. So, you know, these 3, catalog, books, and wiki, you kind of use in conjunction with each other to find what you're interested in. But as I said, a lot of these have not been indexed in terms of coming up in their record search. So one reason I wanted to do this is there's so much here that hasn't been indexed that if you want to feel like you've done a reasonably complete search on somebody, you'll want to go in and search the surname, the locations at multiple levels of government, you know, town or city, county, state. You'll want to look at the wiki to see if there are record sets you don't know exist. So for example, if you've never researched in Quebec, you would, if you looked at the wiki, you'd realize that the notarial records are much more important in Quebec with a civil law system than they are in the US with a common law system. And so you'd want to make sure for Quebec that you track those down for where your ancestor lived. So that's basically it. I will say the best way to learn how to use this is to actually just go in and use it. You can't break it. If you get somewhere where you aren't sure what you did, you can always just click back to catalog there at the top and start over. Does that make sense to everybody? You know, you can be the bull in the china shop. You're not going to break anything. You really aren't. I find as I work with people, too many people are afraid that they're going to make a mistake and the whole site's going to come crashing down. And that's not going to happen. I promise. Any other questions? Can all of you picture things that you haven't found that you might be able to find?
I don't know what I'd be looking for specifically, but can you give any tips for navigating in a huge, long microfilm? Like you talked about that one that was divided up into segments and you could see the different segments.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have any other tips for getting to where your document is?
Sometimes you'll be able to tell that things are alphabetical. Sometimes you'll be able to tell that they're chronological. And if it says it covers 1810 to 1850 and you want 1845, you can put in a page number near the end and then search from there. I have found cases where, like on deed books, there may be an index. It may not be indexed online, but there may be an index at the beginning of the volume of deeds or at the beginning of the list of microfilm records. There may be the first 4 of the 30 may be rolls that are just the index. So you'll want to play around. There's no one definitive answer, other than the more you play with it, the more you'll see the different ways to navigate around. But when you see something where there's like 40 microfilms, look at the beginning and the end and make sure that there isn't a reel that's an index. And then if there isn't, when you open up the film, look at the beginning and the end to make sure there's not an index. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
PJ, is there any way that you or maybe Sharon can email us out an outline or just a skeleton of what you talked about so we'll be able to find these things?
I can put one together and send it to Sharon.
Thank you, thank you.
And maybe next week with dealing with the library move. I don't want to promise anything. And I'm doing a program tomorrow night. I'll send the link to Sharon. If any of you are interested in Scottish records, the Kirk session records came online yesterday. These are basically the Scottish Church ecclesiastical court records. So I was going to do a different program tomorrow night, and instead I'm going to look at not just the Kirk session records, but other church court records. So, the Anglican Church, the Quakers, all the different ways churches had their own system of justice. And these are definitely a case of the black sheep leave records. There's a whole lot of premarital fornication listed in them, along with alcohol. And it's interesting with the Quaker records, a meeting would work with somebody who was an alcoholic very patiently, unless they got in a fight, at which point they kicked him out almost right away. It's an interesting difference. But they're a way to track your ancestors who weren't necessarily conforming to the local social moral values.
That would have been a good St. Patrick's Day presentation.
Yeah. So anyhow, I will put something together. I may actually have a handout for this already. I don't remember. But I wanted to keep, you can see why I didn't want to do a PowerPoint for this. It's just much easier to go into the website and maneuver around to show you what there is. And a lot of it is just, go in and play with it. I will say on the surnames, start with the ones that are less usual. Not the real unusual ones like Restio that, like 173 people in history have had as their last name, but, the mid-range ones. Don't start with Smith, Brown, Johnson, Jones, unless that's a hyphenated name, in which case you might find something that's just that person.
BJ,
So-
how good is FamilySearch at getting like name variations? Like, should you deliberately search all the known variations of a name yourself?
You want to do some of that. They're less good on this side. And you'll find a difference between surnames and subjects on this. The subjects, they will go by the standardized name. Whereas the surnames, they're more likely to have whatever variation is in the title of the book.
Okay.
Does that make sense how that's divided? Same thing with the keywords are more like the surnames, that they're going to search closer to what's in the actual book. Whereas the subject line is going to have the standard. And that whole searching by subject versus keyword is a whole different program. So any other questions? Okay, I've stopped recording. I don't know if Sharon has.